they didn't have the panelist link, they go to the website so they can go in through that way, or it's being streamed on YouTube.
Awesome, thank you. All right, y'all, we're also live on YouTube.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here on time. I'm looking forward to the conversation this evening. There's Mr. Ball joining us.
I know we're already live, and I know that y'all are pros, but Portia's gonna be taking care of the panelists, and so you know where your mute button is, and so I know you can handle that, but she'll be there to support you just in case.
Thank you. So I think I have it's all right at 5. Is it 5 o'clock straight up? I can't find my phone now.
5 o'clock somewhere.
Well, I know everyone has had a busy day. See, Mr. Ramos has joined as well.
At the moment, we have about 53 attendees in the Zoom room with us.
You all think if it's, you think it's ready, we better get started?
Let's get it started, Ms. Bree.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first virtual town hall meeting. We really appreciate you being here. I'm Sherry Breed, and I'm the Chief of Equity and Excellence. And this is about our 12th racial equity chat, but we're thrilled to have so many panelists with us. The purpose of this town hall is really to give you the opportunity to hear from our district leaders. So often you don't have the opportunity to engage in conversations. And so in times like this, it may not be the way we always wanted it, face to face, but we are doing the next best thing. And then most importantly, we have committed to hearing your voice, the community's voice. So we want to have the opportunity to hear from you, and you'll have that opportunity, which will be explained to you in just a little bit. Many of you know, many of you may not know, but for the last 4 years, Fort Worth ISD has been engaged in systemic racial equity transformation. So from time to time, you may hear from the panelists, they may speak to or say something in reference to a protocol. This is a tool that we use to help us facilitate productive conversations about race. So we might say something such as, I'm speaking from my personal, local, and immediate. That means I'm speaking my truth. We use the pronoun I feel, I think, or my experience. And we invite you, when you put your question to the panel, that you do the same thing. Also, we say we've been bold, we've been courageous, and we've been isolating race. So when we speak, we may say, I found that our Black and brown students, or I found this for our children of color. Please feel free to do that as well. We hope we are modeling, having multiple perspectives, because we have all the chiefs, or many of the chiefs, I should say, and we're also hearing your perspective as community members. For the purpose of this conversation today, race will be at the forefront of our conversation, and we will be referencing the protocol throughout the conversation. Additionally, something I want to share with all of you is that this town hall is also a response to the resolution that the board approved just a few weeks ago. We committed to hearing our voice from our community. From the Racial Equity Committee, we recommitted to hear the voice. We agreed to find ways to hear from our communities, and this is our first opportunity in hearing from you as our community. There'll be other opportunities that we're going to work on, but right now this is our first one. So I want to just take time to say thank you again for being here. And before we get started with our conversation for the day, for our town hall, I do want to introduce the people that have worked so hard to get this town hall, worked along with me to get this town hall established and organized. First, if you would just wave when I recognize you, Dr. Doreen Benavides, who's our Executive Director of Equity and Professional Learning. Mrs. Mia Hall, Executive Director of Equity and Community Collaborations. We have 3 equity specialists. Ms. Portia Nickerson, Equity Specialist. Mr. Trayvon Jones, Equity Specialist. And Mr. Jonathan Perez, Equity Specialist. I'd like to now introduce our chairs for our Racial Equity Committee, Dr. Max Crockmall, and Trustee Phillips. And then, of course, we have our board president, Cinto Ramos. If you want to bring words of wisdom or welcome, you are certainly welcome. Dr. Crockmall.
Yes, hello. It's wonderful to be here with all of you today and to be part of this process. I look forward to a good conversation. You know, our Racial Equity Committee has been at work for many years on a journey to identify and analyze and root out all forms of racial inequity within the school district. And we are slowly but surely working our way through that very ambitious task. But our school board has passed a racial equity policy calling on us to do that work. And as a community member and a parent in the district, and as a scholar, I've been honored to be part of that process of moving us toward a more equitable district that will truly serve all students. I look forward to a good conversation today, and I hope we're able to pause and remind ourselves to ask, to look at these questions using a lens of racial equity, as our protocol calls on us to do. And I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Crockmall. Trustee Phillips.
Indeed. What up, everyone? It's good to see everyone. I'm so proud of this opportunity that we're taking advantage of, that with everything going on in the world, with everything happening with COVID-19, it really tried to put a break on so many things, and yet you as staff members, district employees, and all your various departments did not stop. Y'all just dug in quicker and deeper and just been making things happen. So I'm so elated to be with y'all tonight. I'm so elated for our public to be able to know the various workings of what's going on, because I mean, you guys really have been putting in some beautiful, excellent work. I'm so proud of that. So to all of the staff on the line from all the various departments, thank you so much for taking this time to be able to update our community and speak with our community. And then as far as everyone who's watching, thank you for taking the time to stay engaged, that you care about what's happening in the educational system in your city, that you care about what's happening in the lives of our young people, and that you're listening to what we're doing and holding us accountable to make sure that we're providing the best, most excellent service that we possibly can provide, because each one of the students who register for FWISD school counts, they matter, and we should be doing the very best we can to make sure that everyone has the best, most equitable education as possible. So excited to get this going. Shout out to my board president. Thank you so much, Cinto Ramos Jr., for being here. And I will kick it over to Jonathan Perez to get us started and introducing our translation service.
Buenas tardes, mi gente. I'm Jonathan Perez here. And as we continue to move forward and get started, I do want to make sure that we introduce our 2 interpreters today. Miss Monique Hare, who will provide us our ASL services, and she will be on the screen. She's waving right now.
Yeah, because I hear both of you talking. I still hear the last guy talking, and I hear you talking. It's a lot of feedback.
Okay, can you hear? Do you still hear it?
I hear you, and I can still hear the last man that was talking as well.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
We'll work on the technology.
Yes. So, and thank you, Ms. Hare. Ms. Monique Hare will provide us our ASL services, and we will also have a Spanish translator provided by Ms. Giora Spinelli, who is on here as well. Now, if you do want to go specifically to Spanish interpretation, if you look on the bottom of your screen, and if you can't see it right now, just move your mouse around it. Around the bottom of your screen, you'll see where it says interpretation with a globe above it. You click that button and you'll see either English or Spanish, where you'll have the option to select on how you prefer to hear tonight's conversation. Again, thank you to our interpreters for being here with us this afternoon or this evening, and we look forward to the conversation.
Can I chime in real quick, y'all? Ms. Hare, if you have YouTube open in the background, then you will hear this conversation on a delay. So if you close that YouTube video, you should only hear from the Zoom call. Sorry, y'all. Y'all can continue.
Okay. And thank you so much, Mr. Perez. And I wanted to give our board president the opportunity to welcome the group, or whatever words you'd like to share. President Ramos.
Well, good afternoon, good evening. Keep it short and sweet. I want to honor all the work of all the amazing human beings who made this a reality to ingrain it completely in our system. I want to acknowledge the importance of our ancestors and how they smiled upon us as we lead this work. And, I've got to always give love to Miss Cece Moss, who was a trailblazer and someone who had for decades had been pushing for this topic to be on the forefront. And it took a collaborative, multi-generational, multiracial, a lot of cultural identities for Fort Worth ISD to be leading the work. Not to say we're anywhere there where we've arrived. What I can say is that now, as a result of what's been taking place, we are now seen absolutely as the leaders, because we're not necessarily thinking, believing, or feeling as much as we probably are in the acting as far as the systems approach, to where many of our friends around the state and around the country are trying to find a way to find a protocol and engage in healthy dialogue that would get them to solutions. And luckily in Fort Worth, we're not there. We've done a lot of the heavy lifting on the front end. We have a board, a superintendent, administrative team, and a school system that is getting aligned. And so proud of each and every one of you that have been playing a significant role in leading the way for young people. And that so many adults are willing to be uncomfortable in Fort Worth, Funky Town, Texas, for the sake of young people. And for that, I applaud all of you. And I don't often get to give welcoming for the entire board, but on this one, I do feel pretty comfortable that the entire board at Fort Worth ISD is excited about the work that's taking place. Thank you all for your leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos. Ms. Nickerson.
All right, tonight I have the pleasure of introducing our panelists whom we haven't yet heard from. When I call your name, will you please wave? Mr. Art Cavazos, the Chief of Operations and Technology. Ms. Barbara Griffith, Senior Communications Officer. Dr. Cherie Washington, Chief of Students. Mr. Jerry Moore, Chief of Teaching and Learning. Ms. Karen Molinar, Chief of Staff. Dr. Kent Scribner, Superintendent. Mr. Mike Ball, Chief Financial Officer. Mrs. Sherry Breed, Chief of Equity and Excellence. And Dr. Stacy Burrell, Director of Grants and Compliance Monitoring. As a reminder to our panelists, please keep racial equity at the forefront of the conversation. Use and refer to the protocol, which includes our compass, 4 agreements and conditions. 1, speak from your personal, local, and immediate. 2, isolate race. 3, honor multiple perspectives. And 6, if you feel comfortable, speaking to the presence and role of whiteness. Thank you. And I will pass it over to Dr. Scribner for opening comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all of the community leaders who are part of this conversation tonight. The theme of pride really, I think, underlines my comments. I now, starting my 5th year in Fort Worth ISD, am proud to serve this board and this community. As President Ramos indicated, we, in fact, when I travel the nation and interact with our other big city superintendents, we are viewed as a leader in this work. The history that we have had here in recent years and how we're positioning ourselves moving forward in this essential work, I think is key. This board has been unapologetic about acknowledging that racial injustice in our country is deeply rooted in its history. And we've talked about schools being one of the most important places to undo that injustice. Public schools can do one of two things. They can recreate society as it already exists, or they can help to create a society as it should be. This board has supported me as we demand change, not only by denouncing racism, but becoming committed to anti-racism, to deal with it, head on. We made a statement after the terrible tragedy and the many tragedies that have taken place, not only over the last several weeks, but over the last centuries, that to be silent is to be complicit. The establishment, now almost 4 years ago, Sherry, remember when we talked about this, and you kind of looked at me funny when I said I want to create in 2016 a division of equity and excellence, a division that is responsible for addressing disparities and recognizing that responsibility rests with us, with the adults. Sherry and the board supporting our work on racial equity audits at all campuses, district-wide, identifying and eliminating systems, working to eliminate systems that perpetuate racism in our schools and our communities. This is just one of those activities, town halls, community conversations that we look forward to developing solutions. And I think Fort Worth ISD not only can be a leader among school districts, but I think in this city, we need to fill the void of leadership addressing this issue. And just to close my thoughts about being proud to serve this board, who made a pledge in looking at racial equity to seek to understand other people's perspectives, as you said, examine our own biases, which each one of us has, speak up when we observe racist activities and behaviors, and honor and embrace diversity. Again, this is an activity that is unprecedented in our district, and I think many other districts could not consider doing this. And I'm proud to be a part of this conversation. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. I know that you have had many panels today, and I know that thank you for hanging in there with us. And I do remember that conversation well. I think we're going to just now talk a little bit about some of our survey results. To the community, you had the opportunity to participate in the Reshaping Fort Worth survey, and we've used that data, and you will hear some of the panelists share how they've used that data in making the decisions going forward. So Dr. Burrell, if you would just please join us and just share a little bit about the highlights from that survey.
Yes. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to be a participant today, and I thank Chief Breed and her amazing staff of equity leaders in facilitating this town hall meeting. So amidst the district response to not only the COVID crisis as well as the malware attack that we experienced, we administered an end of the year reflection survey to better understand the pulse of our key stakeholders. With this collaboration with the communications department, we administered the Reshaping 2021 FWISD calendar and online learning survey on May 18th. The survey objective was actually twofold. First, to assess the stakeholders' current state of being while learning and working from home during the shelter-in-place mandates. And second, to receive feedback about the 2021 school year plans for reopening schools, which also included choices regarding the instructional calendar. The focus was centered around basic needs and well-being, student learning, connectedness and communication expectations, and as well as next year's planning. The survey wasn't developed in isolation. We used the questions from 2 national surveys that was being used from other school district peers. We consulted with district leadership to ensure that we were assessing the specific needs of Fort Worth ISD, as well as we leveraged the expertise of our software support team to ensure that we were maximizing the capacity of the technology to connect with all stakeholder groups. We also took the extra step to meet with the equity and excellence staff to ensure that the questions reflected an equity and inclusion lens. I'm an affiliate, and that was very important to us to make certain that we had that feel. We also made certain that we developed strategies to make certain that all stakeholders had this awareness. Through the hard work of the translation department, the survey was translated into 7 languages, which included Spanish, Swahili, Burmese, Nepali, Arabic, Somali, and Vietnamese. So to make certain that there was no barriers. I'm going to share my screen right now. And in doing so, we took extra step to make certain that we had great transparency as far as showcasing the results. Our communications department did a wonderful job in setting up this website for us. So if you would like to follow or go in deeper details with the survey results, you can go to fortworthisd.org/survey results with the S at the end. And you can see actually these highlights that I will review, as well as you can go into deeper reports, as you see on the sides, that will take you to the detailed comprehensive reports. A few highlights from the survey. We actually had almost 35,000 survey respondents, which was a very good and high response rate. From that, we had over 16,000 parents and guardians, as well as over 2,000 community participants. We also had over 5,000 teachers self-identified who participated in the survey as well. Some of the key highlights that we would like to really highlight, of course, everyone was very interested in the instructional calendar and the results about that choice and option. It was a close choice. However, parents, students, and teachers, community leaders preferred the traditional calendar option. I know that we'll probably talk a little bit more about that from others on the panelists, but we did hear what parents were saying in the comments. We did read those, particularly about how those calendar options impacted their just daily schedule, their lives, and their work schedules if it impacted the actual school year, and how that would impact like daycare for their children or programming for their students. We also, if we were happen to continue some of the modifications and restrictions based upon COVID, we did hear that most parents and students preferred the split schedules of days versus time. So that means that we could do alternate days, such as Monday, Tuesday, or a Wednesday, Thursday, as well versus AM, PM time for that. We also heard that 62% of parents felt that their students will be ready for the next grade level, as well as 62% of parents thought the amount of schoolwork that their students was assigned was just right numbers of lessons. But we also looked at the comments, and there was a lot of feedback about the online portal that we were using and some of the pros with that, as far as connecting with students, as well as all of the technology and things that we disperse throughout the community and with our students as far as devices and hotspots. But we also read the comments about how we can make those things better, as well as opportunities moving forth of how we can improve those. And I know that others on the panelists will be speaking towards that. We also heard that over 92% of parents who used the meal service was extremely to somewhat satisfied with those meal pickup service, and most to all agreed that those services should continue into the summer months and also when needed. Of course, what's on everyone's mind is about safety. And so the prioritization to return to school and work concerns kind of slightly different by stakeholder. However, the top concerns for students was their fears of getting sick and other students not participating in social distancing and adapting back to the school environment. In particular, for secondary students, they express feelings of being behind in classes. And so that is something that we will take extra measures to make certain that they have that assurance that that their instruction is a continuum and that there's no disruption in that. But all groups wanted to know that schools are being properly cleaned and that how social distancing practices are going to be enforced. Also, we looked through the open-ended questions from the students, and we saw that a lot of them made certain that, again, they felt appreciative of just having a voice and that they can share their concerns. And again, you can go more deeper into detail about each of those stakeholders group from the side view panel of the that's posted on the website, especially online learning and safety concerns, as well as some of our return to building plans. If you have additional feedback, you can also go to our Let's Talk, and we monitor that daily along with communication department. And so to give response, lifetime feedback on how we are, what we're doing, and also give you feedback on who in the district that we can also align you with those services and resources you need. One unique feature about the survey that we did do that we learned from our senior exit survey that was actually simultaneously happening is that there was a question for students if they felt like they needed to talk to someone just regarding about how they're feeling, as well as just some of the changes and disruptions that they experienced during the shelter in place. We had a triggering system where it would trigger to an interventionist specialist and some of the student support service staff that can actually follow up with them in live time to make certain that they had the help and support that they needed. Again, we're trying to make a culture of surveying, not just that we take feedback, that we take action on it, but it's also reciprocal in the fact that we can do it in live time and give you a greater response in those services that we provide in the district. So I hope this has been informative for you, and we'll take any questions that you may have after the panelists have finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Burrell. Appreciate that. And as you close out your share screen, we'll go on and we have used the survey results quite a bit. Leadership teams had the opportunity to review the results, talk about it, and then share. And I know some of that directly impacts what Mr. Moore, our Chief of Academics, has been using. So at this time, he's going to have some information to share with you as well. Mr. Moore.
Afternoon. Good to see everyone. Grateful for the opportunity to engage with our community. I'll tell you, I was thinking about this call yesterday evening when I came across a meme online that said something like this. It said, Texas, put your masks on. If you don't, we're going to make you homeschool your kids again. That should take care of it. And it just made me think about the experience we had in the spring. And speaking from my personal experience, I learned a lot. I hope we all learned a lot from our own individual perspectives. And the survey results that Dr. Burrell shared with us definitely confirmed some of the things that we learned and gave us some additional perspectives. But we didn't stop there listening to our community. We continued to get feedback from parents and from teachers. And what we really learned as we continued to talk and listen was our community wanted options. One, they want to come back to school. And actually, we want the same thing. We want our kids to be back in our school buildings to the extent that it's safe. But then other parts of our community said, we're not sure that we feel comfortable coming back to the school building. We want the option to continue virtual learning. We want the option to continue to educate our kids from home. And I think if you haven't seen it, we did go ahead and make the statement from the district that we support both of those perspectives from our community. We want to provide both of those options for our families and for our student learners next year, whichever environment they feel most comfortable in, whether that be learning back in our school buildings or learning virtually. So we are designing our plans around both of those environments. Not the only learning that we had about our spring virtual instruction. Our families told us, while we appreciate the quick turnaround to stand up a virtual learning platform, we want more individualized opportunities. We want more student engagement and student interaction with our teachers. We want to see our teachers engage more than just our online programs and activities. And I think we all, well, let me speak for myself. I totally agree with that. I totally understand where that request is coming from. We know that the most powerful interaction is between student and their teacher. And we want our teachers to play a strong role in what our new version of online learning is going to look like. So, you know, we're talking to many people. We're listening to many people. We engage with the commissioner on a regular basis. We engage with other school districts. We engage with statewide school leadership groups to learn what other school districts are planning, to float our ideas out there and get some feedback from other experts in the area. And the reality is that there's not a lot of knowns right now. There's a lot of unknown. And there's a lot of planning that we have to do without concrete answers right now. Actually, our last call with the commissioner was helpful in the realm of virtual instruction. He gave us some parameters that they're planning on for virtual instruction, but didn't really speak much to what in-person instruction guidelines are going to look like yet. So definitely more to come there. But that caused us to start thinking and planning around what does virtual instruction look like. You know, I know we really are attempting to continue to listen and be flexible. I think flexibility is going to be the key for our instructional program as we move forward into next year. We really are trying to listen, and we heard our teachers. This was an area that we needed to listen to our teachers when we released the idea of next year's instructional program is going to be both in-person and virtual, and there may be some situations where teachers need to do both. The big question was, how is that going to happen? How can our teachers be effective if they're focused on teaching the students who want to come back in person, and then also trying to keep up with students who are learning virtually? A great response and great feedback that we received from our teachers. I will tell you what we're planning on right now, what we're designing currently, is how we start the year and allow our classroom teachers to focus on those students that are going to be able to come back in person. What we know is that there's going to be a lot of processes that we have to figure out to keep our students safe in the physical classroom environment. Socially distancing our students, making sure that students can maneuver the restrooms, the cafeterias, the common spaces in our schools. Make sure that we are providing quality instruction while we still socially distance or keep our students safe from each other and from our teachers, but be effective as we deliver instruction. We want our teachers to focus on those things in the classroom. What we do have is we have many instructional experts across the district. We have coaches that we employ at the campus level that work directly with our teachers. We have content specialists that work in the different core content areas at the central office. We have technology experts that we employ to work with our teachers. What we want to do as we start out for virtual learning, by hearing from our parents and our students, is we want to look at some of our highest quality instructors, some of those that we've looked and said, you've displayed expertise in the classroom and you're going to work directly with our teachers, and put them back to working directly with our students. How can we use some of these staff members to lead our virtual instruction as the year starts out, to at least get the school year started so that we can build a consistent platform? We heard from our parents when they said, we had good experiences, but if we had 5 teachers, we may have had 5 different platforms that online learning took place in. How can we identify one platform that stays consistent for all of our students? How can we pull some of the coaches and the specialists that we have to provide that online instruction? Maybe flip the classroom where we have somebody that's providing the instruction, the lesson, so that the classroom teachers don't necessarily have to be doing that on a daily basis. What our classroom teachers will then focus on is, how do I connect with my students? How do I engage my students on a daily basis? How do I extend the lesson that was provided so that my students get more opportunities in small groups and individualized groups? We really think if we can get the school year started using some of our district staff and allow our teachers to really focus on those students that are coming back in person, that supports our teachers, that supports getting our online platform established. And then we'll take time to pull teachers that are able to work with a virtual instruction and train those teachers, go more in depth, have a system established so we can transition teachers into the virtual platform where teachers aren't trying to figure out how to do both. We have teachers that are either doing in-person instruction, or we have teachers that are doing virtual instruction, and we don't have to figure out how we split our time between both platforms. We feel like that provides a better experience and opportunity for all students in all schools if we can really help our teachers stay focused on the different areas. A lot of questions around what this will look like. How will grading happen? How will parent contact happen? How will the engagement and interaction with teachers happen? We're going to design all of that. We're going to get that information out. We are doing professional learning for our teachers right now. All of our professional learning works with our teachers to say, if this is the content we're learning, how do you translate that into a virtual environment if you're teaching virtually? And our next step, as we surveyed our parents, is to survey our teachers, to talk to our teachers and hear from them. What environment do you feel comfortable teaching in? Do you feel comfortable teaching in person? Do you feel comfortable teaching virtually? Or are you comfortable in either one and you can be flexible with which type of environment you interact with? The big thing, a big learning that I took was decisions can't be made in isolation. You really have to hear what the community, what your teachers, what your staff is telling you, and respond to that. Be flexible in what you hear, and try to meet the needs of as many of our stakeholders as we can. And that's really where we're going right now. We've got this month of July. We're gonna work feverishly to get everything going, to get information out as soon as we have decisions made, as soon as we have feedback and we can share what things are going to look like for you. And I think the plans for how we do this differently, while they're not finalized and there's a lot of questions we still need to bring together, will give us a better result and will respond to what we heard from our community of a higher quality online virtual experience, learning experience, whether that's virtual or in person. So thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. And as you said, it is fluid. There's still so much that we're learning. Even on our call today, as we were meeting and discussing things, more information was coming in. So thank you for that detailed information. I think we're ready to go on. Mr. Cavazos, do you want to share a little bit about the any safety procedures, meal distribution? Ms. Molinar, anyone that wants to join in, and we'll keep it so we can get to the questions. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Cavazos.
Thank you, Ms. Breed. As was stated, my name is Art Cavazos. I'm the Chief of District Operations. We have some areas that we are all working together to make sure that our schools are safe and clean and disinfected. One of the things that I want everybody to at least be aware of is we've got an environmental manager, and we've had for the last 20 years. So he's keeping an eye on CDC guidelines, state guidelines, and keeping us informed. I also want the community to know that we have a longstanding incident command team that really got strong after the 2009 H1N1 similar type of event. Of course, much less dramatic for the entire country. So since then, we've been planning for all the different risks, and one of them is, of course, a pandemic flu type risk. We are now living it. We have adjusted custodial schedules to make sure that there's more daytime cleaning, disinfecting. We expect that to happen in our schools. We are making sure we're using EPA approved disinfectants, things that will help us control the coronavirus. Other areas that we're looking at is, of course, our PPE. We have ordered thousands of masks and been provided by the state some PPE as well. So we feel pretty sure we'll be prepared for the start of school. Our maintenance teams are out assessing, purchasing the items that need to be addressed so that we can keep our students safe. Our food service program was one of the first ones that had to continue to operate as we moved more into this situation. Our food service team has been strong. We've had success at all our sites, and we've learned a lot from that practice. That's what I have. I just want the community to know that we've been practicing for this and preparing for this. This is the real thing. So whenever it comes to keeping safe and secure, it will involve a whole community and everybody, and we appreciate all the cooperation. Ms. Molinar, I don't know if you have anything else to add. Thank you.
Sure. I wanted to share that, you know, we are receiving guidelines, and as Mr. Moore shared, you know, we had high expectations of some guidelines for in-person as well as safety guidelines on Tuesday, and did not go that way. We only received remote learning guidelines. So we are in contact, of course, with TA, and we're going to follow the guidelines of the CDC and as well as the commissioner and the governor. And as we all experienced today, Tarrant County put a new guideline that will be enforced on us on Friday evening. And so we're working through each of those. We have great partnership also with Cook's Children's Hospital. They have been providing us guidance documents from the medical lens of for our student safety. And we have many students that, of course, are healthy and happy, but we do have a population of students that we're making sure that we're making those accommodations for safety as well. And that is one of the reasons why we offered the second option for remote learning. We are doing the regular PPE equipment that Mr. Cavazos described, but then we also have our students who are hearing impaired that we are ordering special equipment to meet their needs, as well as equipment that our teachers may feel more comfortable rather than a mask, maybe a shield. So we know our students like expressions. We all feed off of interpersonal skills and being able to see each other's eyes and have that relationship. So we're looking at everything through really a big lens of that. Our campus principals and staff will be a huge part of our planning going back. Each campus is unique, and that's what makes Fort Worth so unique in itself. So we need to make sure that they have a voice when we're looking at how our visitor is going to come in the building. Of course, we're going to put out guidelines, but we need to look at each office individually. What type of safety measures do we need to put up to make sure our our employees, like our secretaries and our clerks, feel very comfortable if a visitor comes into the building? Where's our, the job duties of our nurse and all of our other staff? How are we working collectively as a campus team to make sure that we're giving the best environment for that safety? And then also the lens of the teachers and the faculty and staff. What are we doing to make sure they feel safe? Signage in the hallways, signage on the floors. Where's those the 6 feet for the social distancing? Where are those markers at? What's the procedure of going to the restroom, wearing a mask, not wearing a mask? All of those things are everything that we're planning and looking at, and we're getting feedback from. We're also, some of our best partners are other districts. It's always don't reinvent the wheel. Also work collaboratively with those other districts, especially urban districts who are going through the same thing that we are. So we are constantly meeting with them, and we have that opportunity, thankfully, with Zoom and this type of a platform to meet. So it is very fluid, and I know everyone's anticipating details to help make decisions to come back or keep their child at home as remote. And we are working, and as hard as we work, we're also soaking up information that we receive from the state, as well as our own local, city officials as well. So, and we want the feedback on Let's Talk. I know Ms. Griffin will share more about that platform, but that is how we learn. Your responses to Let's Talk give us our FAQs. What are you thinking? What are you concerned about? What do we need to make sure we're not missing, and what are we planning for? Everything from stepping on the school bus to getting on the school bus to go home. Making sure all of the phone numbers are updated for all of our students, and meeting the needs of not only of our students, but our faculty and staff. So we do encourage you to put your questions on Let's Talk. We meet 3 times a week to just talk about FAQs in our planning. What are we missing? So we need your help in that as a community as well.
Thank you, Ms. Molinar. Mrs. Breed, can I make a couple of announcements?
Absolutely.
So, Ms. Hare, if you could please move back. The audience is not able to see your hands. Yes, and then I'm going to do an announcement in Spanish. Si quieren oír la información en español, por favor, tenemos un botón que se dice interpretación para que puedan oír la información en español. Si están en YouTube, no tienen esa opción. So, si quieren ponerse en la llamada, por favor que vayan a la página de Facebook y pueden estar en la llamada con también en español. Gracias. Thank you so much, Mrs. Breed.
No, thank you, Dr. Benavides. And we'll go right into, I think, Mrs. Griffith, we've been talking a lot about, we have to look ahead. What is registration, enrollment going to look like? Because we are in this time, but we know we're looking forward to August. Ms. Griffith.
So in the spring, just about the time we began our pre-K kindergarten online registration campaign, we were all fired up to do that. And the COVID-19 crisis happened. Literally, we were coming out of spring break and getting ready for our April 1st sign up. And we found that after April 1st, parents were not quite signing up the way they have in the past. That's because they had more immediate concerns. They were thinking about what was going on in their lives right then. And that's when I thank Karen for, Ms. Molinar for mentioning that. We created a COVID-19 website where we tried to answer questions on a daily basis, did numerous videos with Dr. Scribner. Usually his video messages are once a month. He was doing them once a week for there for a while. And again, we answered hundreds of questions. We connected our parents with local resources, nonprofits and churches who are offering those kinds of services. We have found in the past couple of weeks now, parents are looking to the future. So we are getting now the pre-K registration numbers like we've had in the past. And then beginning next Wednesday on July 1st, we will be asking parents to register their children for returning status. These are everyone in the district who is currently enrolled has to re-enroll beginning July 1st. So beginning at midnight on Wednesday, we will open up the returning student registration. You can find that on the website at www.fwisd.org/register with all the information. This year, we are giving our parents the opportunity to express whether they would like to have in-person learning or would like to have a virtual classroom, online learning. And we're trying to answer as many questions as we can about that. The other thing we're doing, in order to register, you have to have what's called a SNAP code. And we have a team at our Family Communications Department who are standing by to answer phone calls. We're already starting to get them. People find students find their SNAP code on their final report card, but sometimes they don't always save that number. And so we are poised to offer that as well. If you have a question about online registration, we want to encourage you to call our Parent Information Hotline at 817-814-2070. So it's quite different this year, but we're very determined for online registration to proceed. If you have a concern, if you have a question other than can be answered by the Parent Info Hotline, you can go to our Let's Talk platform. If you go to our district website right now, there's a large banner that says Let's Talk Q&A, and you can just click on the link and be taken right to that platform to ask a question. So we encourage you to do that. Like Mrs. Molinar said, we get a lot of our FAQ from that. If people are asking a question, obviously they're not the only ones who need that answer. It can be applied to a great number of people. And we are also pretty committed to answering those questions within 24 to 48 hours. And we just find it to be, it's incredibly helpful for us as well. Not only are we answering questions, we're learning what your concerns are. So if you have any other questions about that, I'd be delighted to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Griffith. As we said, we want your voice, and this is another avenue for us to hear from you and learn from you and help us and guide us in the decisions that we're making. Now, I can't say enough about one of the newest members of our team, Mr. Ball. You came in, and I guess we had some situations within district, and then we also were hit with COVID-19. But you came in, and as they said, what we say in my church, you showed up and showed out. So tell us a little bit about what we did with the Chromebooks and hotspots and things.
Thank you, Ms. Marie. Thank you so much for the kind words, and it's an honor to be a part of this community conversation tonight. And if you'll allow me to just kind of take a stroll down memory lane back to late March, when when the COVID-19 pandemic came upon us, and we had to make the decision to not be able to be in our buildings providing instruction, and we had to very quickly make the transition to providing remote instruction, and very quickly we recognized that we had some students with some needs. And so our board of trustees really stepped up at that time. We recognized the needs, we communicated the needs. They communicated some needs to us, and we communicated some needs to them. And they very quickly empowered our superintendent, gave him some extraordinary authority really to respond to the emergency situation. And within the span of about 45 days, our board had authorized us to commit resources in the neighborhood of $4.5 million to purchase some Chromebook devices for students who did not have a device in order to receive the remote instruction. And the board also authorized us to acquire about 6,000 hotspots, which provided the connectivity needed in order to successfully receive instruction on those devices. And so it's really been a privilege to be a part of watching that leadership and enabling us to implement some solutions for our students who had a need. And so it's been a privilege to be a part of that, and I'm grateful for the leadership of the trustees that our community has elected, who certainly have shown their great commitment to meeting the needs of students.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. And I think, as I'm looking at it, I think only last thing before we hear from our community, and we're down to that point now, giving you the opportunity to put the question in and the question and answer, and then panelists, maybe more than one of you may want to, but if there's anything you see you want to respond to, please just join in. But I do want to give a shout out to the Front Porch Task Force that did go out and visit some of our families, social distancing and following all protocols, but I assure you, earlier this week, I had the opportunity to volunteer on Monday, but there were others out there, I understand, maybe on Wednesday, and I don't know about Tuesday because I think it might have rained, but they did work hard sharing information with the community. Some of you in the community may have the opportunity to have visitors or volunteers from All Church Home, Fort Worth ISD employees, or our partners, Read Fort Worth. So just a big thank you for those volunteers that came out to go out and remind students about the things that they could work on with fun over the summer, and then also connecting it with some resources they might need. With that, Dr. Benavides, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Ms. Breed, I think we have Dr. Washington. She's got a few words to share about summer learning.
Absolutely. Sorry, Dr. Washington.
No problem, Ms. Breed. Thank you. Well, Mr. Moore in his session spoke about the importance of high quality instruction, and we know that is a critical and our major top priority in the district. And while we think about the focus during the academic school day, we do know that prior to the pandemic, many of our kids come to school before and after school, and we provide extended day opportunities for students. So approximately 85% of our students participate in before and after school activities, enrichment activities that include educational, academic, and sometimes athletic opportunities. They spend approximately anywhere between 45 minutes before and after school to, if you consider Saturday schools, 240 minutes. As we went out on the pandemic around March, then Mr. Moore shared we quickly turned to our online instruction. And that was a challenging transition for all of us. And I like to echo what Mr. Moore said. We did learn a lot. We learned that we had to respond quickly for connectivity for our students. We learned that we had to deliver instruction differently, virtually, and how do we make sure that we reach out and communicate with our students. Mrs. Breed mentioned the front porch team that helped. Ms. Breed's team assisted with helping us locate many of our students that live, and we are going to call out race and economic status. Many of our students of color, where we were struggling to make sure we engaged them and got them on board with our online curriculum. So we know that there are things we have to do, and we're working right now to better that implementation of instruction. And I will say that we are also working to have extended learning so that we can bridge those gaps for students that may have had struggled during the time that we were delivering online instruction. So what I am pleased to announce is that currently, we have over 10,823 students that are enrolled in our summer learning opportunities, and this is at the elementary level. Approximately 1,600 to 1,900 of our elementary students are engaged per grade level, whereas last year we only had approximately 4,200 to 4,300 students in our entire elementary grade levels that participated in summer learning. So we are working hard to identify those students and bridge those gaps at the elementary level so that they are able to remain on grade level and on task. At our middle school level, we have approximately 634 students, which is half of the number of students that we've engaged in past in the summer learning. And one of the things we did differently this year is we engaged our students in intersession learning, meaning we actually engaged in real time recognizing when kids were struggling. We offered opportunities to reteach and redo. And then we had students where they were able to reassess and then gain a passing grade. So that allowed our middle school students not to become off task and off grade level with their peers, and cut that number in half, where we now have only 634 students. And those students, we're putting together robust online learning opportunities to ensure that they're engaged and also yield them on track with their peers. And finally, at our high school level, we have 2,382 students enrolled in our high school summer program. And students that are engaged on maybe for credit and recovery. And then some of them are engaged for initial credit, where they want to accelerate and move ahead on becoming graduating on time, and some of them want to graduate early. So we're really excited about the opportunities that we put together, that our students are engaging in our online, and that this is a platform that we're utilizing to ensure that students have an opportunity to bridge those gaps and don't slide based on the summer and based on having been out on COVID-19. That's all I have, Ms. Breed. Thank you.
Thank you, and my apologies again.
Thank you, Dr. Washington.
You're welcome.
So we're now going to get to the question and answer, and I know you all have been waiting so patient for that, so I really appreciate it. I'm going to do the Spanish message one more time. Para la gente que quiere oír la información en español, por favor, tenemos un botón que pueden hacer la información en español para interpretarlo. So we're going to get started. Let me give you some norms. First of all, for our panelists, when you respond to the questions, please remember to isolate race for yourself and also for the response to the question. If you have a question, please drop it drop your name in the question Q&A box, and we will ask you to go live. You will be released by Mr. Jones. We honor the time for each person to ask a question. You have exactly 1 minute, and then our panelists have 1 to 2 minutes to respond to you. We ask you that you be respectful when you go live in your comments, and you refrain from using any profanity. The panelists will have a time limit as well, so just know they will respond as quickly as possible so we can try to get to as many people who are in line to ask questions. And questions not answered, as have already been previously stated, please know that we will answer these questions in the Let's Talk app for our Fort Worth ISD website. And with that said, we're going to get started. We'll begin with the first question. So Trayvon, if you'll let our first participant in.
Yes, and thank you so much to all of you who already have your name in the Q&A panel. If you would like to share or speak, please be certain you just type your name into the Q&A panel. Our first speaker is going to be Sol Tager. Sol, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, your time is beginning now.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. First of all, I want to say I'm very grateful for Fort Worth ISD giving us the opportunity to share our concerns. My question is pretty simple. I just want to know if there's a plan for teachers that have pre-existing conditions. That would be my question. Is there something, do we have a choice like parents do? Is there something we can be offered to keep our health? Thank you.
Tager, it looks like Ms. Molinar is going to answer the question. Go ahead, Ms. Molinar.
Hi, Sol. Hope you're having a great summer vacation if you're one of our teachers. And yeah, I do want to respond to that. So as far as, you know, options for our teachers, we are, you know, working through that as well. We're actually going to be working with Dr. Burrell to send a survey out to our teachers just around what are they comfortable with when it comes to virtual learning, in-person learning, or a hybrid of both. You know, at this time, we are asking that our teachers, as well as all of our staff, our campus support staff and all personnel, will be reporting back to the campus to deliver instruction regardless of virtual or in-person. But I do want you to know, Sol, that there is many options in place for you as an employee of the district. There is what we call the FFCRA. It stands for Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And that is something that has been put in place just due to this pandemic. And our employee services is ready to assist any of our employees that feel that they may need to talk some options when it comes to their health, as well as any other options they need to discuss with family members. And that's not the Families First Coronavirus Response Act is not the only option. There's other type of accommodations that we work through as a district. And we have been getting legal advice from the state level, federal level, medical, and we are ready to assist any of our employees that need that direction. And we're happy to make sure we can post that later on for you, the phone number and the email, just so you can ask and follow-up questions for that.
And Doreen, if I could add to that a little bit, just for clarification, I know Mr. Moore talked about the different roles that teachers might have. Well, first day of school is August 17th, and a lot can change between now and August 17th. The current spike in cases may result in us needing to change our plans between now and August 17th. I, in fact, have a phone call, a Zoom meeting with a few superintendents and the commissioner tomorrow afternoon. But the current plan, our best thinking today, is that parents will get as much information as they can before making their decision. Now, the enrollment window opens on July 1st, but parents don't have to sign up on July 1st. They will have several weeks to make their final decision. But we will have some students coming to school and some teachers teaching in person in a brick and mortar building. We will have other teachers teaching in a virtual environment. We may have some teachers teaching half the day in person, half the day virtually. We will not have teachers doing double duty. I think that there's a misperception out there that teachers will have to teach a 7.5-hour day in the school with half the class, then go home and do online learning. That will not happen. Either you're an in-person teacher, a virtual teacher, or some balance of that within the school day.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. So we have our next participant in line. Just a quick announcement as we bring in that next participant, just so that you know, we have about 136 participants currently on this live chat, but we also have 85 on our YouTube channel who are watching. So thank you everybody for joining us on this call today. I appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next one. Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones?
Well, hello. I've been unmuted. Can you all hear me? My name is Vanessa Adia. All right, great. I do want to kind of piggyback on what Saul was saying earlier and encourage you to maybe look at the district's discretion for personal days. Teachers are notorious for going to school sick. They may have symptoms, but not have a fever that would be checked on their way in. And so it would be really helpful for teachers to know that they will be able to take the time that they need if they do need to do so. But my question is based on some of the things that I've watched earlier this summer, which is that we have noticed that the digital divide is also a racial divide. And as Dr. Scribner has already pointed out, we've got a spike in cases right now. We probably anticipate closing down at some point during the year. And I want to know that our communities of color, our kids of color directly that we're reaching out in a better way based on what we've learned in the spring.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Jerry, can you address that and then I'll follow up?
Yeah. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I was trying to get off of mute. Yes. So I 100% agree with you. When we started virtual learning this spring, we were intentional about which campuses we started with resources for our hotspots and our Chromebooks, and making sure that we responded to our communities of most need. That result ended up to be many of our East Fort Worth pyramid schools. We will continue to do that. I think part of our plan with instructional support is if we can allow teachers in the classrooms to focus on those students that are coming back in person and have staff to establish the process of what online learning looks like first. And I would like to add in there, we won't do that in isolation. We will do that in conjunction with our principals and with our teachers. But if we can get that consistent platform and a process in place, that way we can bring teachers on board and get teachers used to what is the platform, how are we going to do virtual instruction before we say, go figure it out for yourself. I personally believe that's going to result in a higher quality of instruction for our students. I think part of the issue is how we ensure that those technology devices to be able to access the virtual environment are in the hands of our students. We will continue to prioritize our hotspots and our Chromebooks. We deployed over 11,000 hotspots to our students and over 13,000 Chromebooks. We actually have been awarded an additional 3,000 hotspots that will be coming into the district for the start of the fall. And we will prioritize those families that have told us we have a concern with digital access, with internet reliability, and be doing that prioritized to our schools and our students that need the greatest support. I know there are more efforts to increase and combat that digital divide. And I'm sure Dr. Scribner.
Yes, so when we encountered this crisis in the spring, we distributed 24,000 hotspots and devices. To the question, kind of the parallel between the digital divide is also a racial equity question. We recognize that entirely. And In addition to the meal distribution, we've distributed over 830,000 meals as well. But back to the digital divide, if we are allowed to have in-person instruction this summer, the plan is to provide a jumpstart instructional program in those students with the greatest need, particularly those that Jerry mentioned in the Dunbar and OD Wyatt pyramids and Eastern Hills pyramids, whereby students would be coming back 3 weeks early, last week in July, first 2 weeks in August, ramping up until the first day of school on August 17th. I think Cherie, Dr. Washington also has some insight in terms of our outreach programs as well.
Yes, and I was going to share as well. As Mr. Moore mentioned, we prioritize our students of color. He mentioned on the east side of Fort Worth. We intentionally had a team to go out and where kids weren't engaged, go out door to door and meet with those students and parents. We're putting together a platform where if parents and or students are struggling to utilize the technology to be able to support those students. And one of the things I want to add is normally we did not take that technology up. Students still have that technology in their hands today so that they are able to use it consistently and not have to have a time where that is not in their hands and they have a gap and lapse in learning. So that was one of the things we were very clear to do, to make sure that they had continuous access and that we still have opportunities to provide learning for our students. And Dr. Scribner has already mentioned that we've identified students that will need support and come back early to engage in instruction that will continue to support their individual needs.
Thank you, Dr. Washington. All right, we're going to take our next caller. I believe it's Alec. Ale Checa.
Ale.
Ale, I apologize.
Yeah. Hi, this is Ale Checa. I'm going to try and talk fast here, but going back to the original question about teachers and safety, we're highly anxious here because the number of teachers who have upper respiratory issues, asthma, immunocompromised, it's not just teacher, that's everybody in the building, the cafeteria staff, the front office, the maintenance staff. I just feel really uncomfortable that there's not enough assurances on what are the safeguards in place for those people? Are they going to get priority for being able to work from home? If they're an hourly employee, what are their options? Yeah, so that's a big area of concern for me. And also just like the number of bodies in buildings. Like you can put as much signage as you want, but like ultimately it comes down to like bodies in buildings. And you've already kind of partially addressed what I was going to ask, was like prioritizing which students are able to come back, because definitely there's a sliding scale of like the number of my students who have been able to get academic support at home and the ones who haven't, so that's an area of concern. Edgenuity is straight up inadequate. I mean, it is just straight up inadequate. So that's something that I worry about, and every teacher.
That's time, Ms. Checa.
Yes. And, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ale.
Yeah, go ahead and finish up.
Well, it's one thing. We got a lot of grace from parents on Edgenuity and on our online learning bit in March, because they knew that we were kind of making it up in an emergency. But I want as much lead time as possible for my lesson planning and to be able to do things. And I feel like for parents, a part of their decision making is like, is the online learning going to be like it was in the spring? In which case they're not going to want to do it.
Yeah, short answer to that is no. It will not be like it was in the spring. As everyone remembers, we pivoted within a week from in-person to online, and Edgenuity was the quick fix. That is not going to be the program moving forward. In fact, we're designing that this summer, and I know Jerry and his team can speak to that. What we will be doing, though, is it will be the Fort Worth ISD curriculum taught in a synchronous manner. What's happening in a classroom on September the 10th will be the same thing that's happening online September the 10th. It'll be Fort Worth ISD certified teachers, in some cases, master teachers providing the TED Talk, if you will, the lesson for an hour or 45 minutes, and then the teachers working with their students through that for the remainder of the instructional day. And the teachers will be, that support from teachers will originate from a Fort Worth ISD school or facility. That's the plan today, that teachers, unless to your point, there are other conditions, and obviously we will work with our employee services to support all of our teachers. There are medical issues, legal issues, and we'll honor all of that. But the general plan is for those who are teaching virtually, that take place in schools. And quite frankly, we need to really monitor the increase in cases, because we may not be hybrid, it may be fully online, but we don't know that at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. So just to remind the audience, we've got about 15 more minutes, and I want to try to get through as many panelists as possible, as many participants as possible. So please make sure that you adhere to the 1 minute question, then that would really help us get through some of this. So our next person is Adam Desmond. Adam?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I thought we were here to talk about race. Am I in the wrong place?
No, you're not in the wrong place, but we do have a number of questions that we are hearing from the community. That's why we called it a town hall, but we are putting race at the forefront.
Great. Okay, so as a white male teacher with the district, I want to know some practical ways that I can be responsive to the needs of my students and address white privilege when there's such disparity among adults as to what it is and isn't. Are we adding information to our curriculum so we're being consistent?
I can start with that, and there may be others. We absolutely appreciate the question, and we are working with our teaching and learning teams so that we can have the equity and excellence and have that lens of racial equity, and have our best practices for critical race theory, but best practices for teaching students of color and bringing in that lens. We have had a lot of training that's being offered currently for teachers right now, so they can build that lens. And then even before what we have this summer, many staff members have had the opportunity to go through seminars. So they have had the opportunity to build their own lens and to further their own racial journey before we had them go take it back to school. At this point, every campus should have an equity lens. And I was trying to think of cultural relevant practices, is that's what I was trying to say, to build that into the curriculum. Closely working with that team.
Thank you, Mrs. Breed. We're going to go ahead and go to our next participant. The next participant is who, Trayvon? Can you tell us?
Lisa McDaniel. Lisa, can you hear us?
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Make it quick. It'll take me 2 weeks to make it quick. My first problem is we just have, as far as assistant learning centers, we don't have no assistance from the school district. When all this happened, the ball dropped and everybody disappeared. We had Chromebooks didn't work. We had hotspots didn't work. We had parent complaints. We had, yes, you guys had meals, but parents was not able to get to those meals. So what happened, we had to provide meals. So that caused me as a learning center to take care of my community, to hire a teacher, and also to provide meals. So I'm hoping if this happened again, that we can all come together and we all say we love the community and we on board with the community. I hope that we can come together as a unity and unified, because it's about the kids and I'm not seeing that.
If I can real quick, Dr. Scribner, Ms. McDaniel, I would love to make connection. I'd love to reach out to you and talk about what that partnership can look like as we move into the fall semester. I will tell you, we really are looking at strengthening our online program the role our teachers are playing in the instructional program, the connection that we maintain at the campus level with our students. And if you experience those issues from your learning center, I'd love to talk about how we can partner with our early childhood center, with our academic programming, and make sure we support each other for the students of your.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. We're going to go ahead and go on to our next participant, Trayvon.
Next up, we have Miss Wanda. Miss Wanda, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm glad for this opportunity. Prior to COVID, systemic racism was obviously apparent in Fort Worth ISD, and that only 2, I repeat, only 2 out of 10 African-American students and only 3 out of 10 Latinx third grade students were reading on level. That's prior to COVID. I shudder to think what the statistics are now during and post-COVID. Well, we're not post-COVID, but I would like to know, and we've heard a lot about online learning. I think the online learning curriculum, and someone can correct me, was created for students that were assumed to be on level at the time of the shutdown. We had students that were way behind level. So my question is, what aggressive strategic plans does the district have moving forward? And I know you're gonna have to probably be creative to allocate funding for human and material resources, such as quality teachers, behavioral and literacy specialists, interventionists, because starting where we think we are now, those students that were behind are even further behind. And material resources. I know the Fort Worth Literacy Plan has a lot of intervention material resources. I'm just trying to figure out, how are we going to get those students that were already behind and have lost a lot of ground, how are we going to get them to regain some of that ground? What are the plans?
Ms. McKinney, I 100% appreciate and love your question. It's your statistics, your data are what keeps me up thinking about the students of Fort Worth ISD and what we're doing for our student performance. Let's talk a little bit of reality of literacy instruction in Fort Worth ISD over the last several years. We have adopted an intervention-based model, a deficit model for our students. And there are many people right now that are telling us, as we come back to school, as kids come back, they're going to have lost so much instruction time that we need to go back and talk about how we intervene, how we provide remediation for our students as they come back to the next grade level. I would challenge us all to think about remediation not being the solution. Scaffolding and challenging our students is the solution. We are in the process of doing a number of things around our literacy plan. We've adopted a new literacy model that really focuses on the behaviors of our students and our teachers during the literacy block. We spent so much time in our literacy block of doing small group intervention and putting students in independent center time, that if we had a 90-minute literacy block, students may have gotten the benefit of a teacher for 20 minutes out of a 90-minute literacy block. If we believe, and I do, that the greatest impact to students is a teacher interacting directly with the students and providing quality instructional time, we've got to invest in more of that time. We need to invest in more time in reading during our school day. Maybe 90 minutes isn't enough time. I'm not taking away from any other content area, but if our kids can't read and our kids can't be successful, especially our students that are struggling, especially our Black and Brown students, we're not doing our job. So we're looking at increasing our instructional time in literacy. We've got a fundamental 4 components of literacy that I don't believe that we focused on in the past. A graphophonemic awareness. It may be a dirty word here, but it's phonics. How do we make sure our kids have the phonemic awareness that they can actually read words on a page and call the words correctly? What about their fluency? How do we employ skills in the classroom during instructional time where we can actually build students' fluency so when they have a grade level text, They can actually read it for understanding instead of just trying to call words. Comprehension. When our students read, how do they understand what they read? How do we do think alouds with our students and push our students to get and grasp the concepts of the text that they're reading? And then how do we make sure students are writing, not hold that in isolation, but pair that with their reading? These are the components that we are putting new training and new development in the hands of our teachers. We have a statewide plan for literacy academies for all K through third grade teachers that we are moving out this summer, all in the foundation of these four fundamental components of literacy to really change the way that our literacy approach in our classrooms has been, and really make it a concrete approach to our students, so our students that are struggling the most aren't trying to figure it out on their own in a small group without the benefit of the teacher directly in front of them, but work with our teachers to understand how do I provide direct instruction in these fundamental components, spend more time in our classroom, push our students with grade level text that they struggle with, but that we support them through that struggle so they can truly understand how to read and how to read more effectively. That's the first step and what we're moving forward for this school year, for this summer, and for our training for our teachers. So I 100% agree and appreciate the question.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and go on to our next participant, Trayvon.
Next up, we have Carrie. Carrie, you can go ahead and start.
Hi, yes. So my question is, my son plays football, and I'm actually thinking about keeping him at home for for this new school year. So would that affect them if I decide to keep him? My other question also is, I do get meals to go from the FWISD. Is that something that's going to be provided now with keeping him, or actually my 5 children home? Is that something that's going to be offered?
So thank you for the question. I will speak to the first part when you spoke about athletics and your son playing football. I will tell you that our executive director of athletics and the athletics department, as well as all of the campus athletic coordinators, they have spent the last 2 weeks developing guidelines to address the COVID-19 procedures that have been guidelines that have been released by the state. They have an extensive plan and have begun their strength and conditioning program that starts with an assessment prior to the kids coming to each facility. Students do that assessment online, and before they enter, there's a week-long training where the students walk through the facilities and showed how they progress through each station, the expectations of wearing a mask, the expectations of cleaning after each station, how to interact if they're outside and the distance, how to interact and keeping masks on when they're inside. We have a specified distance if they're lifting weights. We have a specific protocol if there is a concern that we follow, that all athletic coordinators and coaches are aware of. We have a process where the athletic trainers are trained to do health and wellness checks. So we have worked very diligently to try to make sure we have a process that is very intense and strategic, so that we are making sure our students are safe. We are constantly watching the TEA guidelines as well as the UIL guidelines to guide our actions as we move forward with athletics. And we will release that information as we get more information. But right now, they have allowed us to do strength and conditioning. But if that changes, we will make sure that we communicate that. But there is a process. So if your child is at one of our campuses, I would ask them to reach out to the principal and their athletic coordinator, and we can provide more information on what our process is for our athletes, especially during the summer and as we move forward for the school year.
Thank you,
Dr. Washington. With regard to the meals to go, we need to follow up on that. And I think the short answer is a student can be participating on virtual learning at home and participate in person in at the band, the football, any extracurricular activity.
Dr. Scribner, if I may, we have applied in order to continue a program going throughout the year with the TDA for a variance, and we do expect to have some meals to go program that looks very similar to what we have right now, the twice a week pickup. But once we get all that, we will make that announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Cavazos. So I know we still have a lot of participants. We're going to try to answer 2 or 3 more questions, and then we'll be wrapping up this conversation. So Trayvon, will you give us our next participant?
Yes, next up we have Sheila Ortuno. Sheila, you can go ahead and start.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Sheila Ortuño, and I'm a teacher at Washington Heights. And my question was about the online training that it has mentioned that we're already receiving training for online teaching next school year. And I've been registering for as much as I can, but I don't see enough for that goes into more depth of what the online teaching is going to be like next year. And I was wondering if there will be something that, and also if it's going to be something that we like, kind of like the required trainings that we took towards the end of June, that all teachers were required so that we're all on the same page before the school starts.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question. Actually, a great question. There have been a lot of teachers asking about, hey, you're saying we have training for online learning, what it's going to look like next year, but I don't see it. And what I see looks like what we've had before. All of that is accurate. We've actually got 3 or 4 different stages of how we're doing our training for getting ready for next year. Right now, Connect Ed, which was our summer learning plan for flex hours and for training for teachers, released with content courses and with blended learning courses. So you will see some of the flipped classroom, blended learning, engagement strategies with our Google Classroom platform and different virtual learning platforms. That's one way that you can get some training and development for what online learning, a resource to use for online learning next year. As you enroll in your content courses, every content course, while it may not call out specifically, here is online learning, I have asked all of our curriculum staff to embed in every training components of how we take the content and turn it into how are we using this and how can we turn this into virtual learning experiences. So in every content course that you will take, there will be a component of how this translates into virtual experience. Along with that, in the content courses, I've asked those that are delivering the work to model what it would look like, what a teacher would do with their students in a virtual learning environment so that you're actually experiencing virtual learning in your learning experience and then able to take that model and redeliver it for your students. The next step, as we move on, there is a second phase to Connect Ed in early August that we will release another strand as we develop here in July what actually online learning specifically looks like. What's the consistent platform? What is the flipped classroom environment going to look like? What are we expecting of teachers as they connect with those that are doing the instruction and the connection piece that we were asking of teachers? We'll have specific content for that, so that is before you come back to school, you'll have more opportunities to develop in that area. And then when you come back at the beginning of the year, we're going to really narrow the focus of what we're doing from a district perspective for your teacher development and say, campuses, get your teachers ready for the environment that they're going to teach in, whether that be a safe school environment for in-person learning, or that be how we prepare our teachers to really do the virtual instruction, the online learning. That's all we're going to ask you to focus on. So your mind is not split in many different directions to start out the year. Your mind is, how do I get myself prepared for what my instructional responsibility is?
Thank you, Mr. Moore. We're going to take one more question, and please know that all the questions that you submit, we will be submitting them to Let's Talk so that we can respond to the questions that you have. But I do want to honor our panelists' time, and so we are going to ask that you submit one more participant, and then we will be wrapping up with some closing remarks from Mrs. Breed.
Okay, well, we have Courtney C., who is here. Courtney, you can go ahead and speak.
I just had a simple question. I wanted to know how pre-K parents will choose between virtual and in-person learning since they've already pre-registered. They don't have a SNAP code. Does that make sense?
It certainly does. That's one of the areas that we're trying to work on right now. I'll be quite honest with you, when we start talking about pre-K and kindergarten, that's the most difficult environment to do virtual learning for our students, because we know so much of the learning at the pre-K and kindergarten age is developmental and interactive and social and emotional. But we are still going to provide those opportunities. We're going to come back to our pre-K families that have already enrolled, and we'll have a way to survey you to give us your feedback on what your preference is. We're still trying to design exactly what that pre-K environment would look like when we go virtual, but we'll definitely circle back around to everybody that's already registered.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Mr. Moore. Again, thank you so much to the participants who jumped online to join the conversation, both through YouTube and also on this virtual Zoom call. Ms. Breed is going to close us out for today, but I do want to take a moment and say thank you so much to our panelists who joined us here today. Muchas gracias.
Ms. Breed, I got some things I would like to say as well. I don't know if you want to end on the close or you want me to do it here, or how would you like that to occur?
Go right ahead, Trustee Phillips. And I
Cool,
would
cool.
trustees and superintendent, if you want to say anything, I would just say thank you again to everyone. And I apologize. I don't know what's going on with my internet. I was kicked off 2 or 3 times. So, you know, what can you say? Technology, you got to love it. So anyway, back to you, Trustee Phillips.
No, indeed. And definitely appreciative to everyone on this call, staff members, everyone who's taken time to answer these questions. And thank you, community members, stakeholders, parents, teachers that jumped on here. I just want to talk a little bit more to the heart of some of the things that we heard tonight, and we'll be able to get a little bit more specific with some of the answers. And we talked about the Let's Talk feature, to where we will be able to make sure that we're answering the questions of those who weren't able to get in tonight. So I'll say this: one of the things that we're going to have to do, and this is on us to make sure we do, we need to have another one of these in the very near future. And what we need to do with that, it needs to be Q&A heavy. And so with this one, this is the first time where we all kind of got on this platform together. And so there was a lot of updates that we needed to make sure that people knew about. So that's where the format came from tonight, is that we had to make sure that these various departments can get out the information, because we just hadn't been able to do it in a conducive manner as of yet. So that's why that took the time it was taken in the forefront. But now that we have done that aspect, and we've been able to, in various departments, have been able to provide updates, we got to make sure to do one of these again, to where we're able just to hear from parents, students, and community members on the questions that they have. And the thing is, we might not always have the answer immediately, but it'll do us so much good to be able to hear where those concerns are, so that we can make sure that we're getting those answers and making sure that we're considering those things. I already know that we are, but it's good for the community to know that we are. So with that being said, there's a few other things. One of the things is, and I'll be blunt about this, is that behind the scenes, we've already had some of these conversations about that we have to make sure that we're communicating effectively with our teachers. And so I'm saying that in the sense of, I've had conversations with several of you here, that you've already been putting things in motion and saying how that has to happen. So kudos, but I want the community to know that too. Not that it's just, not that part is just behind the scenes, but that those conversations are happening, that we have to communicate with the teachers, so you can know the information that you're going to need, because we know that it's scary going back in. It's going to be scary going in. We don't know what everything looks like. We're putting plans A, B, C, and D in place, hoping to get some information from different entities about what we're going to be able to do. And so we don't know, and doing the best we can with the information we have. So it's definitely not trying to keep you in the dark in any way, educators. It's trying to make sure we just give you the most accurate information we can have at the moment. But we do absolutely got to make sure that we're communicating with you, teachers, so you can know how all this is going to affect you, because we're going to absolutely need you in so many ways going back into this thing. Another thing I want to address directly is that I heard a white gentleman, and I'm sorry because I don't remember your name, sir, that was on that spoke out. But you one of the things you brought up is that made me think, and we've already been having these conversations as well, is that we have to absolutely ramp up our culturally responsive training around pedagogy and everything. We can't have particularly our white brothers and sisters that are educated in the district, wanting to know more and wanting to be in that space of educating our Black and brown students better and can't, or don't have the resources to be able to do so. And so I know that we, again, one of those things behind the scenes, being privy to be able to have these conversations with you all, I know this stuff is in the works, and that's a beautiful thing. But I want the community to know, and I want that teacher to know, and all teachers to know, is that, we understand the time we're going to as well. With all the unrest happening, the demonstrations, our students speaking out, letting us know how important race is. If we have white brothers and sisters in these classrooms that want to be woke and do the woke work, we got to make sure they train to be able to do that woke work. And so we don't need to let you down on that. We hear you loud and clear on that. And so we definitely have to ramp up what that culturally responsive pedagogy is going to look like, so you can be equipped to go in these classrooms and help our young students as much as possible there. A couple of other things, and then we'll get ready to close out here. I definitely heard about pre-existing conditions as well. The beautiful thing is that we've been doing board workshops, and we've been talking about things that we're putting in place. And one of the main things that we've been discussing there is making sure that safety is first. Not only safety for our students, they're our absolute priority, but making sure that safety is first for all of our staff, 11,000 people working for Fort Worth ISD. And we got to make sure that everyone is safe. So when we hear about pre-existing conditions, the thing is, just know we absolutely hear the humanity in that. This is not something where we're trying to force people, no, you coming back in here, you're going to do this. No, absolutely. When people have pre-existing conditions, when people are worried about what's going to happen, we don't know all the information around this virus. We're trying to get as much information as possible to make the best decisions. Dr. Scribner has been doing a fantastic job of keeping us updated and taking that into consideration. So just know when, Allie, I heard you. When you're talking about teachers are worried about pre-existing conditions, we want your life to be intact way more than we want you working per se, right? And so we will figure out those ways. I'm confident in the team to figure out those ways of how you can be the most effective in educating our young people, but absolutely unequivocally being safe while doing so we can make sure that your quality of life is good as those things are happening. And so just know this, that we're getting information from everywhere. Sometimes the answer is straight up, I don't know. And we scared to say that sometimes, y'all. But sometimes the answer straight up is, I don't know. Because we are trying to get information from the governor of Texas. We're trying to get information from Texas Education Agency. We're trying to get information from Tarrant County, from the city of Fort Worth. And we have to take into account all of these different entities as far as when Dr. Scribner and the A-team and administrators are in the board or in here trying to make these decisions. We are trying to piece together all this information best we can to make the best decisions possible for everyone that's involved. Just know that it's coming. We're getting it. We're making the best decisions. And sometimes we don't know what it's about to look like because we haven't heard yet, right? So let's not throw any entity under the bus, but we're trying to do the best we can with the information we have. But that's where we got to strengthen our communication, because if we can at least let you know that, hey, these are things we're considering, we're trying to gather as much information, hopefully that'll ease you a little bit more to knowing at least we know what's up out here. But just understand, we're Fort Worth citizens, each one of us. We live here, we work here. So the fears, the concerns you have, we absolutely have those as well. And so we absolutely are trying to do the best things to make this as safe as possible. I got 2 kids in this district. President Ramos has a kid there. Dr. Scribner has a kid in it. So when we talk, we're invested. This is not like we're making a decision for somebody else's kid and we don't have the skins in the game. We got the skins in the game too, and we're very, very concerned to make sure that all of our kids, including our own, have the most safe environment possible to be able to learn in. And so finally, and then I'll kick it to Ms. Breed, or if anybody else has some final comments to go on, we absolutely understand that our young people are coming in at a deficit in this fall semester because of everything that happened with COVID. We were rocking and rolling, hit spring break, and everybody's getting ready to go on vacations, and all of that halted. And when I tell you, seeing the work that I know that the people behind the scenes, Dr. Scribner's team, the race equity department, everybody jumped in and really got to work on what everything was going to look like. making this stuff up, trying to figure it out. What kind of curriculum can we throw in place? Because no one was prepared. No one is ever prepared for a global pandemic, and it happened to us and it hit. But they worked their butts off, and we had to makeshift some things in that initial time. Now we have the time to really get back to the drawing board and figure out what some of this is going to look like going in. But what we understand is that because those things happen, our young people are coming. They didn't get the level of instruction that we wanted them to be able to have in the previous semester. We're not able to put programming that we wanted to put in place for the summer the way we normally would have. And so we know that as we go in, that we're asking a lot of educators, of campus principals, administrators, everybody to really get on the ball here and understand that we got to play a lot of catch up. We got to play a lot of offense to get our young people where we want them to be. But everyone's really willing to do so. And that's the beautiful thing about it. So we see that, we recognize that, and we're gonna make sure that we're putting the things in place to try to make sure that our young people get the best possible school year they can get out of 2020, 2021 when this happens. And so when we signed that race equity pledge, I'm telling you right now, much like President Ramos said earlier, I know I can speak for the board. I know I speak for the people on this call. That wasn't lip service. That was real talk. And we're about that work. And we understand that particularly our Black and brown students, we got to be on attack and we got to fight for y'all to make sure that you're getting everything we need. That's where the equity work comes into play, is that those that are in the most need are the ones who get first and get most. And that's the kind of things that we're working on right now. So like I said, we gave you the technical answers because those are the actual answers, but we got to give you the hard answer too, and just know that all of us in our humanity right now are doing the best we can. We're going to do a stellar job of educating all of our students, and we need to do another one of these really quickly in the future to where we can simply just get to your questions. Because even if we don't have the answers, you're going to help us to be able to design the things that we need. So, Ms. Bree, thank you so much for that time and letting me get on my rant for a little bit. But I'm gonna kick it to you and let you take us from there.
Nothing else from me, Max. If you have something you'd like to share.
Yes, thank you. And I've been listening to this whole call, and I appreciate all the work that went into this. And I want to echo and what Q just said and add a few words briefly, because I know it's getting late. I have to say that I've been disappointed by the way that this conversation has proceeded today. You know, it was the Equity and Excellence sponsoring it. We asked the Racial Equity Committee chairs to be here, and yet much of the conversation has danced around race. And indeed, you know, starting with the survey itself, there was a question on there about race, but the report that we received today and the executive summary of the report has no information about race on it. And you have to drill down into the parents, the teachers, and the students for any breakdowns of respondents. And there still aren't crosstabs on the questions. I think there's only a couple questions with cross tabulations of any kind. The one on parent breakdown shows that 100% of the respondents are Hispanic, which is definitely not true. And it also shows that 18%, I think was the number, it's not in front of me now, were white, which is twice the number that was in the district. So I think all of the survey data we need to dive much more deeply into. And it reflects to me, you know, an ongoing tradition of not using that racial equity lens that we talk about all the time. At our last in-person meeting in March, I urged the superintendent and everyone else there to make sure that every time we're asked to do any report, we're using that racial equity lens that the board has charged us with using. And yet still we receive these reports in which race is not discussed and it's not foregrounded. And so for me, I don't know what that means, except for that survey is not terribly helpful. And frankly, I don't think surveys are all that helpful anyway in the moment that we're in, because the decisions that you all have to make as leaders of this district are really not about people's comfort levels. They're about health and safety and the recommendations of scientists and medical experts. And we don't have a medical expert on this call. I don't think we have a chief of medicine in our district or of public health. I don't know what the closest possible title is, but that person needs to be involved in these conversations. And we need to be pushing back on the recommendations of the governor and TEA and of the county, who've all demonstrated that they don't really care about science, right? They have a long record of not caring about science. And so I think we need to, as you said, Dr. Scribner, continue to model what real leadership looks like for our community and actually prioritize what public health experts are saying and put them at the center of the conversation. All of what we're talking about with COVID is about race, right? But we didn't underscore that today. We know from a lot of studies that African Americans and Mexican Americans and other Latinos are disproportionately affected by COVID. And that means that for us in a district, right, that is 2/3 Latino and what, 22–25% Black, those students are disproportionately likely to be infected and to be sick compared to other people their same age, right? Are we making policies and procedures that take that into account? Are we taking that seriously? The same is true for our teachers, the teachers who came on the call today, right? They're terrified that they're going to be asked to go teach in classrooms where there's no space for them. How are we suddenly, you know, we don't have any sense of how many people are going to go online or not. All the hybrid options that were being talked about in the survey apparently are no longer on the table. But our Black and our Latina teachers are also disproportionately affected by COVID and disproportionately at risk from COVID. You know, when our first question, I think it was Sol, came on and asked about people with pre-existing conditions, because of racism, right? Black and Latino people are more likely to have pre-existing conditions. They're more likely to be at risk across the board, right? Coming into this on day one, and that has not been part of our conversation today. And I really appreciate what Trustee Phillips said about the putting lives first, right? It's something that no one at my job has told me, but I really do appreciate that is your perspective at the very top. But we can't keep getting reports in which race is a footnote, and we can't keep talking about COVID and pretend that it's not also about race, and that it's not also about the failed leadership of other entities to which we're reporting. And I know there's some legal constraints, right? But we need to do everything we can to push for a solution that is human-centered, right? That is about health, that is based upon scientific expertise in medicine, and that understands that that also involves race, right? And racial equity, and that we have to be dealing with that first and foremost. And then the last thing I want to say is that our community right now, like all of our nation, is on fire, right? And it should be, because the systemic injustices that are baked into it are finally being revealed and brought to light by more people. And I'm so proud of our courageous students and teachers and parents and community members who have been out on the streets demanding an end to business as usual when it comes to the prevalence of white supremacy in our communities. But one of the things that they have told us is they are uncomfortable, to get back to that, they're uncomfortable with the presence of the police in our schools. And we need to do something about that. And that needs to be on the top of our agenda for our committee and for our board and for our staff when we talk about reopening, right? What happens if there's issues around health and safety or discipline? Are we gonna, you know, add to the school to prison pipeline by continuing to have a militarized police department in our schools? I don't think that most people today who are waking up, who are part of this movement, this uprising, want to see that continue. And I would like to see us model our leadership there as well. So I appreciate all the work. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to continue being part of it and helping however I can. But I think we need to continue to challenge ourselves to do better.
Thank you very much, Max and Q. As we started the conversation talking about how racial injustice is deeply rooted in the history of our country, I'm glad you brought up the possibility of us reimagining the role of SROs on our campus. I know that the board is committed to holding additional town halls in pairs of board members in the north, south, east, and west parts of the city. And perhaps as we begin chapter 2 of this work and the next Zoom event that we have together, that be one of the top topics. I think the points that you brought up about how the COVID-19 crisis and the crisis of race in this country have so many parallels. You're absolutely right. We need to tie those two together, talk about that and how it presents itself in our schools. Also discuss the reimagination of SROs moving forward. So I look forward to being invited to another event like this very shortly.
Well, I'll tell you, well, Sherry, as we close it out and leave, I'm telling you, I sing it from the mountaintops. Our equity and excellence department, y'all are amazing. Y'all are always killing it. Y'all are head deep in this work. Y'all are making it happen. Kudos to y'all. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to doing this again, but thank you so much, y'all. Y'all are really amazing. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
So,
participants. We appreciate it. And all the panelists, again, thank you. We'll see you next town hall.
Thank you. Buenas noches.